Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how I did this fine art levitation photography, and I'm going to show you how I shot and how I edit using Photoshop, and I'll give you some tips if you wanted to do your own levitation photography. Those images are super cool. You need to do one. Let's do it. So let's start by planning your shot. First things first, decide on the location, background, and pose for your photo. I love to use Pinterest to find inspirations for my photos. For my project, I use a dark fine art canvas backdrop that I painted for my home studio. This gives the image a painterly artistic feel, just like fine art images. If you're curious about how I painted this backdrop, you can check out the video linked above after watching this video. I opted for a pose facing upwards instead of the more common face down pose for levitation photography. Your chosen pose will dictate the type of support you will need. You can use a stool, a ladder, or a block, or anything that you think it will support you. For my shoot, I used a tall, cushioned stool, and although it turns around, it was a little bit tricky to balance. It worked well in the end. Then decide what are you going to wear and what sort of props you are going to use for a photo. Since this is a fine art photography, I chose a vintage yellow dress to contrast beautifully with the dark background. I do have some vintage dresses here at home that I use for fine art photography, but I'm sure you can use whatever you have there. Think about either if you wanted to include some props. Including some props in your photo will make it more creative. I decided to include some papers falling from the sky because it was easier, but you can include anything and be creative. For the lighting, I recommend try to keep the light for your photos even. I opted to use natural light for all photos, and although I shot some of them in different times of the day, I don't recommend that. I recommend you shoot all the pictures you need to put it together in the same time and in the same light, because it will be easier for you in editing. Now it's time to take your photos. When you're ready to shoot, keep in mind that achieving the perfect pose, especially when you're doing levitation, it may take a few tries. And also, if you're doing your self-photography, it's gonna be even harder. Maybe just focus on capturing different parts of your body in the desired position, and later you can combine them in Photoshop. I took separate shots of my legs, upper body, hair, and dress. Don't forget to shoot your clothes and hair in motion to create a sense of levitation. So I did a few photos throwing my hair, so I did also a few photos throwing my dress, because levitation photography is all about motion. Don't forget about that. And besides, that will make your photo more realistic. So when I shot my old photos, I used Imaging Edge app from Sony, which helps you if you are into self-portrait photography to see yourself when you are shooting. If you wanted to see a video where I explain all these methods for you to take your self-photography, go in the link above after you finish this video and you can watch it. You can perhaps use the same techniques for your self-photography that I'm using. Now it's time to shoot the props if you choose to use some. I took photos of the papers page falling using the same backdrop. If you have like a fragile props that you wanted to use, consider shooting them over a cushion or a mattress to avoid breaking them. Again, shooting the props in motion will make the final image more realistic and easier for you in the editing. And don't forget to try to shoot them in the same background you're using for your photos. If you can't do it, shoot them in backdrops or backgrounds that you can easily mask them afterwards in editing. After taking all my shots, I imported the ones that I chose in Photoshop and started to put the image together. And now I'm going to show you how I did. So this is the initial photo. I chose to start editing. Chose this photo because I liked my face and my arms didn't quite like my fingers, but that's okay. That was the best one I took. I did this photo really quick, so I didn't take many shots that day, especially because the lighting was not helping me. You can see there was lighting coming from the front here of my garage, and I didn't quite like, so I had to rush to do these photos. And you can also see that I don't fit into my backdrop because I have a really tight space in my garage, but you know, you make it work. If I fit it in the background, it would be easier for me to mask, but you know, you still can mask and make it work anyways in Photoshop. So I started by building the body. So I chose the photos that I wanted to use of the feet, of the dress, of the hair and everything. So here's the hair shot that I put it together, and this is the leg shot. So that's the shots that I chose. So see the dress and the legs, the hair. I also use this hair, you know, to put it together. And then afterwards, that's when I blend into the backdrop and I got this. And you can see that the hair, I didn't quite mask the backgrounds because I shot in the same background, and then I sort of just left there. Otherwise it's really hard to mask hair and it would take longer. So then I chose a floor, put a floor, and also put a hue and saturation effect to make the floor darker. I did a puppet warp of myself, my whole body, just to make a nicer position. Then I built the shadow and I closed the image. And then after closing this image, after blending all the layers together, I did a high frequency separation. This is to smooth my skin and smooth the dress as well. You can see if I turn on and off how it helps to create this nicer, you know, more consistent skin. Then I chose the papers that I wanted to use for this image and put them together. If you go to the paper group, you can see I probably used about 6 images of papers that I shot, and then did the shadows for the papers as well. Then afterwards, after having the composition all together the way I wanted, I did shadows, lighting effects, and I also put a dust and smoke effect coming from there, and did the color grading. This color grading I did using curves, and all the lighting effects and the shadow effects I usually use curves, but you can use different tools, but I prefer using curves. Sometimes I prefer using curves, sometimes I prefer using something else. But for color grading I use curves, and what I did was a simple color grading. I just put like a blues in the shadows and a bit of yellow in the highlights, and it was just a common color grading that a lot of people do. And did a vignette as well, created more shadows, more lighting effects, and close the image and did a camera raw effect to finish up. Usually when I finish up the images, I export them, send to my phone, and then I check if there's anything that I found that is not really working out. And sometimes I bring back to Photoshop to fix things that I don't think it worked. In this case, I brought it back and fixed the floor because I just thought it didn't work before, and created the shadows, fixed the shadows. Then I closed the image again and did a camera raw filter in the whole image, and that is the final image here. That's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this fine art levitation photography tutorial. Remember, you don't need anything fancy to create amazing photos. just a little bit of creativity and some editing softwares like Photoshop. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more creative content and photography tips. See you in the next one. Goodbye.